Is the IB diploma really worth it? If you're looking to answer that question today, you've clicked on the right video. Today I'll be talking about whether or not the IB diploma is worth it and if you should continue IB for your future high school career. So to start, I think the most important thing really is to ask yourself why you want to do IB. So everyone obviously has different motives, different reasons, and so is it for the clout? Is it because you want to look cool in front of your friends? Is it because a lot of your friends are actually continuing the IB program and you think it'd be really cool too? Is it because you think that colleges will like it better on your college apps? Is it because you want to go to school internationally? Or are you just like me and you want to walk around with your IB stole after the stole ceremony so that everyone thinks you're smart? I'm just kidding. Kind of. Anyways, regardless of whatever the reason is, it's really important to consider the different aspects of it so that you're not making an impulsive or unreasonable decision based on one sole aspect that you think at this time is the most important thing in the world. Because I promise you, it really isn't. So once you've asked yourself these different reasons and why you want to do IB, I'm going to now talk to you a little bit about my take on the IB program and its different aspects so that you can kind of use that information to decide whether or not the IB program is for you based on why you want to do the program itself. So first, we're going to be talking about GPA deflation or inflation. So holistically, IB is known for its very rigorous coursework, and it can be very difficult to complete all the assignments sometimes if you're constantly procrastinating and things like that. And so because of that, it tends to be a little bit harder to maintain a higher GPA overall, and so it can be a little bit daunting sometimes to students who are considering IB, because obviously we all want the best for our GPAs, right? We all want to go to the best college that we can go to, and sometimes in order to do that we need to have high grades and a high rank in our class. And so that's totally understandable, and so I think that it's something to consider for sure, because IB students have a lot of other things that are going on in their lives, just like other students, but IB just kind of adds on to that because there are different requirements such as like the extended essay, the internal assessment, and various other things that only IB students are held responsible for on top of their classwork in those courses that they're taking. And because of that, it can be harder to maintain a higher GPA sometimes just because you're dealing with so many things at a time and you have less attention necessarily for each individual thing, which may contribute to you having less time to study for a test that could impact your grade positively or negatively. And so that's definitely something to consider when you're deciding on whether or not IB is right for you. And another thing to consider is that IB teachers don't often give as big of curves compared to AP or on level or honors, and so because of that it can be harder to maintain a higher grade in whatever class you're taking, just because there's less opportunity for you to increase your grade even if you didn't perform so well on a test. So because of the lack of curves, it can be harder to maintain an overall higher grade in a class. And moving on to the second thing I'd like to talk about today, which is the torturous workload. I'm sure that if you have considered doing IB in the past and have gathered some different perspectives on the program itself, have heard that IB's workload is torturous and absolutely impossible to accomplish because there's just constantly assignments and people are staying up really late at night and sometimes even pulling all-nighters to complete all the things that the teachers are assigning. And I will say that the workload that IB provides is definitely not easy, but at the same time I think it's definitely doable if you learn to manage your time well and get things done in a timely manner so that you're not constantly loading everything that you're trying to do all in one day, because that can tend to be very stressful, very tiresome, and lead to you pulling all-nighters. So honestly, I don't necessarily think that IB has a inhumane amount of work that it makes students do, because if you are able to get tasks done and assignments done in advance, you're definitely going to have that extra time and be less stressed when there are assignments due because you've already completed it and set it aside and started working on, for example, next week's assignment. So it's just really important that you don't procrastinate, because procrastinating can lead to a lot of work piling up on itself, and that's what causes the workload to sometimes be extremely stressful and difficult to handle. But for me personally, I like to think that I'm a very detail-oriented person and I get things done in advance, and I'm very organized in that sense. And so I've never really had trouble with the workload at IB. It has been very stressful sometimes, especially junior year, but it's definitely doable. And I don't think that should be a reason that should really hold you back from doing IB, unless you feel like you're the most unorganized person in the world and cannot really imagine doing so much work. And
unless you're like the most unorganized, busy, and constantly confused person in the world, I think that you will be able to handle the IB course load.
It may be difficult at times, but it's definitely feasible and possible. And so I've personally never had to stay up past 11 p.m. for doing homework, and I think that if you're able to kind of organize your time well, you should be able to as well. The next thing I'd like to talk about is the community, and honestly I think that's definitely one of the most amazing parts of IB and what has really propelled me to continue this course and this program, because of how many amazing friends that I made over the past 4 years that I've been in the program. And I think just because of how small our IB cohort is compared to like the typical class size of like the seniors in our school, we only have about like 100 people for the IB students, and there's like 1,300 something seniors in our graduating class. And I think that because we are a smaller group, we're able to form stronger connections, and we see each other in class all the time just because of how small we are. And so it's easier to foster those connections and maintain those relationships as opposed to if you weren't in the IB program. And I think that it's really important that you have those foundational friendships and those strong relationships in high school, because that will really help you in college when you're making friends in the future. And it's just always really nice to have those friends to look back on and those memories that you make with each other while in the program. And it's honestly just really nice to kind of stress out together, because you know you're not in it by yourself. There's so many people that are there supporting you, that are going through exactly what you're going through, and it's just really nice to have that mutual support network, that support group that will help you get through even the hardest times. And I can't even imagine what I'd do without the community I formed at IB, and I think that anybody who does choose to do the program will likely say the same. And so one of the most asked about questions is, do colleges actually care? Well, I will say that IB is a more rigorous coursework, as I've touched on before, and so because of that, colleges do acknowledge that and are aware of that when they're considering your application, because they know how much extra work goes into being an IB student. They kind of take that into account when they're evaluating your other merits and your grades and things like that. So it definitely doesn't hurt to be a part of the IB program, as it's often seen as a very high level of education that some students aren't able to achieve through non-IB courses. But of course, it's relative, because AP can be very rigorous and difficult as well, but I think just like the IB diploma itself and the IB program is starting to gain a more reputable reputation, because I know in the past those credits haven't been accepted, but now it's becoming increasingly more popular. More students are participating in it, and more colleges are really recognizing the merit that students who participate in that have. And I think that being an IB within itself says something about your character and your determination and motivation, and those are two qualities that are really important to colleges, and that's what they typically look for in their students as well. So it may help to some extent when you are applying to colleges, but I wouldn't say it's the determining factor. And so finally the question comes, would I do IB again if I could start over? And honestly, with a lot of reflection and consideration, I think that I would. I would 100% do IB one more time if I could, and there definitely are things that I regret, things that I question sometimes or look at and think, what if I hadn't done IB? Like, how would my life be different? How would my work ethic be different and things like that? Would it have been better for my GPA? Would it have been better for my college apps? Would it have been better for my mental health? But I think that holistically overall, I would say that IB was worth it, and I'm really glad that I did it because of the friendships that I formed, as well as the skills that I gained through the program. I learned a lot of writing skills that I never would have thought of, and I learned how to write my own research paper, the 4,000 extended essay that we have to write as juniors and seniors. I learned how to use my critical thinking to an extent that I didn't think was possible, and I honed in on my time management skills because it was very necessary in the IB program. And I formed a small interconnected community that I will remember for the rest of my life. And so honestly, I would do the IB program again, and I think that if you're a very motivated, hardworking, and sociable person that wants to make fun memories and be in a very intellectually stimulating environment, the IB program will definitely be beneficial to you. And I want you to ask yourself, why do you want to do IB? And considering this question and all of the information that I provided with you, really reflect if the program is what's for you, and if you would really and truly feel like you'd be happy there. And honestly, I think that it really depends from person to person, and there's no right or wrong answer. Just really considering the factors and everything that you want for yourself is really important. And I personally don't regret doing IB, and if you choose to do it, I hope that you don't either. Thank you so much for watching this video. And if you really enjoyed it, I would appreciate if you could like and subscribe. I will be making more content and videos in the future, so please stay tuned for that. If you know any other friends that are trying to decide whether or not they should do IB and you think this video might help them, feel free to send this to them so that they can get some insight into what it's been like. I will also be making a video later on that covers more in depth what my experience was like in IB, and I hope that might help you as well too. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them down in the comments below and I will do my best to answer them. And if you have any future ideas or questions that you'd like me to make a video on, please let me know down in the comments as well. Thank you!